Delegates, I now call to order this closing ceremony of the 2018 Conference on National Affairs. My name is Blake Sloan, and I will be presiding over this ceremony. First, we will have the CEO of the YMCA Blue Ridge Assembly, Melissa Logan, for a presentation.
Thank you, Blake. Good evening. Wow. It is incredible to think that just a few days ago, I welcomed you to the mountain. I hope that your week has been filled with some eureka moments. And I hope that you have found a home for all of you first-time delegates. We truly do. When you sit on the porch and you enjoyed the green rocking chairs, on the back of those chairs, there were names on them. Those are donors that believe in you. And many of those donors are actually in this room. There are staff, there are board members, there are YMCAs from all over the Southeast. And so tonight, I have the great pleasure of presenting, and I'm going to present it to you, Blake. Sorry, you're surprised. It's a check from our annual campaign because the donors that give to the Green Rocker Society are our annual campaign donors. And so tonight I get the privilege on behalf of the Assembly, all of our board, all of our staff, all of the donors, to present a check to the YMCA Youth Conference on National Affairs, which provides scholarships. And the check this year is for $14,146. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you for making this all possible. And now for the presentation of outstanding proposals, in a few remarks, David John.
Glasses? Thank you all very much. Good evening, delegates. Before I announce the recipients of the 2018 Outstanding Proposal Awards, I would like to publicly thank a phenomenal group of colleagues and friends. These individuals spent many enjoyable hours in the resource room working with many of you to prepare speeches and answer a host of thoughtful and, yes, sometimes perplexing questions. Would you please join me in thanking this year's resource advisors? Good call. Thank you very much. And our thanks to each of you for once again preparing some innovative, forward-thinking proposals. Your hard work and passion were reflected in the topics you selected and the research you performed. You have spoken with a loud, collective voice about the issues you believe our nation needs to address. Congratulations on a job well done. Now it is time to introduce the recipients of this year's Outstanding Proposal Awards. When I announce your name, please come forward and receive your award and remain standing at the front of the auditorium. Delegates, please withhold your applause until all recipients have come forward, and spirit fingers are encouraged. These are in no particular order. The first outstanding proposal is proposal number 267 to revise the provisions of H-4 visas in order to decrease domestic violence and dependency in the families of H-1B workers. Marissa Lee from Model UN. Next is proposal number 422, a proposal to include non-spouse partners, parents, and siblings in the Lautenberg Amendment. Scott Nagatashi from California. Our next outstanding proposal is proposal number 271, the implementation of ecological bridges and tunnels to preserve human and animal lives. Harry Gould from Model UN. Gould. Next is proposal number 558, to remove the ratification deadline of the Equal Rights Amendment. Allison Kinney from Maryland. Next, proposal number 135, establishing return-free filing in the United States. Lucas Gatterman from New Mexico. Next, proposal number 349, a proposal to alleviate the financial burden of child care. Joseph Pinto from Delaware. Next, proposal number 582, to increase campus-wide approaches to address the college mental health crisis in America. Sharif Long from Texas. Next, proposal number 188, to regulate ghost guns and correlating parts. Claire Kwan from Kentucky. Next, proposal number 51, to address the humanitarian crisis causing large-scale migration from Central America to the United States. Sam Bisno from Pennsylvania. Next, proposal number 233, to limit autonomous weapons and the development of AI. Benjamin Rubin from Connecticut. Next, proposal number 90, a proposal to protect the American worker. Pavel Shirley from Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2018 Outstanding Proposal.
Thank you, delegates, and congratulations to everyone that was recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former conference director Bill Behringer for the presentation of the Paul Grist Award.
Oh my goodness. I tell you, it's always refreshing to come back here, obviously. And to see the faces here, you guys are just awesome. You're real awesome, I can tell you that. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have seen a lot of these groups, and this looks like probably one of the best ones. So there you go, that's good. You know, I've kind of been here involved with this conference since 1974. Now, don't do the math. I know some of you are kind of figuring out how old I am here. And either bringing a delegation here or running the conference. And I just got to say one more time, it's an unbelievable experience as you've witnessed this last couple of days. But what you do here is just mind-blowing. I've been watching on the internet this week, and these guys have done great, and you have done just outstanding. So I think that's commendable. My job is to talk about Dr. Paul Grist. This is the gentleman over there to the left. An outstanding YMCA director. He's a true YMCA legend. Unfortunately, very few people in this room ever had the opportunity to meet him. But I first met Dr. Grist in 1968 when I came here as a high school student. And his impression on me was unbelievable. After college, I went to the YMCA work. And from 1974 to last Friday, I've been a YMCA director at a Y in Dallas and Amarillo, Texas, and Montgomery for a long time, and finally in Greenville, South Carolina. But Dr. Grist was director at the Selma YMCA, and there he had unbelievable impact on young people and adults in that community. There's a state park named after him there. The YMCA of Selma is the Dr. Paul Grist Y. So his impact was unbelievable. And when I started bringing young people here from Alabama, Dr. Grist would always be out here, and when the buses showed up, he would be the first person to greet anybody. And he was a very stately-looking older man even then, but he had a smile that was just contagious, and he would talk to anybody. So it kind of mirrors what your delegation leaders do. They are Dr. Grist. They are like Dr. Grist. And so the opportunity that he gave to a lot of young people is still reflected in of course, the adults that bring you. He never refused to talk to anybody. He always wanted to talk to everybody. But if you talked to him, he always handed you a poem called The Man in the Glass. And if you've ever read that poem, it's very inspirational because it talks about you. It talks about the person looking in a mirror. And I'm going to read it to you right quickly. And this is written way before he, she, and all this. So just be careful. It does refer to he, but it's you, okay? When you get what you struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or your mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one looking back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass. But your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. And that's you. I mean, you're here living this right now. You are looking at yourself and seeing an outstanding young person. I see it. And I think you need to be commended. And again, it's just exciting to be here. I would like to, again, thank every delegation leader that's here. And if I could, let's give them a round of applause right now. That's pretty cool. There you go. If we could ask now all the former Grist Award winners to come forward. We want you to stand right down here, if you would. Any former Grist Award winner. While they're coming down, I want to say one more thing about Dr. Grist. Dr. Grist gave his entire career to helping young people grow physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I believe as you see these people walking down, you can see that in them. They're the ones that have helped you grow in whatever track it is, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And this is an outstanding group. It's been a pleasure talking to you for a few minutes. Sam? Oh, you're right, man. Sam's going to now make the presentation.
Okay. As Bill mentioned, and you can see in front of you, the Grist Award is given to outstanding adults for their work both off the mountain and on the mountain. Back home, preparing their delegations, working with their state programs, as well as the work they do with all of you here. that come from all over the country to be a part of this week. This year's recipient has been an advisor for over 20 years at the state and here at Cona level. She has mothered every delegate that's come with her delegation. She has worked hard for them on the delegation level and served the conference in several capacities, but mostly in the bean room. If I could ask Ms. Christine Yerke from Pennsylvania to come and receive the Grist Award. And Christine loves to speak in public, so she has told me that she's got a few words to say.
I actually do love to speak in public when I have a chance to prepare. It is an honor to be able to serve all of you. The students from my state affectionately call me Mama, and that's a title I cherish. But all Cona kids become my Cona kids, and if you ever find your way in Pennsylvania and need something, look me up, and you'll have a warm bed and a meal waiting for you. So thank you, and be the best people you can be.
And now, to award the William C. Chandler Scholarship for Christian Leadership, Katie Alsup.
William C. Chandler was the executive director of the YMCA in Montgomery, Alabama for over 50 years, where his profound involvement earned him the nickname Mr. YMCA. During the early part of his career, he raised over $1 million to support and expand Y programming across Montgomery. That was the 1950s. He raised over $1 million. In times of racial tension in Alabama, Mr. Chandler stepped in to work with both civil rights and community leaders, developing One Montgomery, a biracial organization fostering discussion and better understanding among citizens in matters surrounding race. William Chandler's true passion was working with students, and through the YMCA of Montgomery, he was able to do just that. He established programs such as the Alabama Youth Legislature, the Man of the Year, and other programs that led him to receiving accolades and awards. However, Mr. Chandler anonymously pursued programming that will continue to leave an impact for generations to come. He was a member of the First United Methodist Church in Montgomery and served as a deacon, adult Sunday school teacher, and long-range planning committee member. Working with the YMCA allowed him to live out his faith and leave a lasting legacy within the Montgomery community and here on the mountain. William C. Chandler's son, Bill Chandler, has said, "If there is a message that we can take from his life, it's that it's a duty and a privilege to serve your fellow man." The William C. Chandler Scholarship for Christian Leadership was established to recognize and aid a delegate who upholds the YMCA core values of honesty, caring, respect, and responsibility, and lives their faith through their daily actions. This year, our scholarship recipient, is truly the epitome of a servant leader. There are 3 areas in which this delegate chooses to strive daily to improve upon: supporting everyone around them, bettering themselves, and achieving their educational goals. But the most important area to that delegate is working to support those around them. This delegate gives a voice to the voiceless. If someone is uncomfortable talking about a circumstance or a situation, the delegate is more than willing to voice their concerns for them. This delegate has compassion for those they disagree with, and instead of seeking divisiveness, chooses to try and turn misconceptions about their community into teachable moments through patience, respect, and empathy. This delegate's story is not an easy one. They have had to overcome many obstacles in life and on this mountain. But instead of being discouraged, they use their voice to advocate for others. This delegate has been described by many adults on this mountain as humble, caring, and the moral compass for their delegation. One delegation leader stated that the delegate could easily be disenfranchised by their circumstance, but instead chooses to be kind, positive, always smiling, and has become to be beloved by all who know them. It may seem as though this delegate is often overshadowed by others because they are not one to put their own interests first. However, this delegate shines only more brightly because they help others find their light. At home, this delegate has worked incredibly hard to fulfill their academic wishes. This delegate commuted for over an hour as a middle school student to complete a rigorous scholarship programming, ensuring a free high school education for themselves at a top academic institute in their state. As a first-generation college-bound student, they have had to navigate the often confusing world of college applications and acceptances, but did so with grace and understanding, helping others along the way. This delegate is active in their Catholic church, uses their faith to help them advocate for their community, and chooses to practice this faith every day through their actions. Now, without further ado, the 2018 William C. Chandler Scholarship for Christian Leadership is awarded to the delegate from Arizona, Mr. Angel Gutierrez.
Next, we will have James Farnsworth to give media awards.
Good evening, everyone. It's been my honor this year to serve as the media director at this year's Conference on National Affairs. Thank you all for such a great week. It's my 6th year on the mountain. I was a delegate for 4 years, and this year, my first year transitioning into this whole world of being an advisor. And it's been an awesome experience, so thank you. So the real reason I'm up here, of course, and the most important thing that I want to do this evening is to recognize the members of the Cona media team. This year's team was extremely talented, dedicated, and committed to reporting on all important stories happening around the mountain. The one thing you have to remember about the Blue Ridge Journal and the Cona media team is that we're not just catering to people that are here on the mountain. Obviously, you're our primary audience. We want to keep you informed of what's going on. But you have to remember, we also have thousands of alumni, parents, community members, and friends of the program that look to the Blue Ridge Journal social media pages and all of our different platforms throughout the week to stay updated on what's going on at the conference. I know my first year off the mountain during the conference last year, I read every single post, every single picture, and I really appreciated it. And I know for the seniors who are here tonight, you will too in the future. So before I get to the media delegates themselves, I did want to take a really quick opportunity to thank all the adults that worked with us this year. We had Ray Ramundi and Dave Roush from the New York delegation. We had Nancy Dennis, or as most people refer to her, Mama Dennis, from the family of Alabama, as well as Jennifer Hill from Oklahoma. These are people that take off work and leave their families to work with the media program, and I know I can speak on behalf of the entire program that we are so thankful for all of their support and help this conference. So now what you've all been waiting for, we'll get to the media delegates. So first of all, can I have all of the media delegates please stand up and we can give them a well-deserved round of applause. Whether it was taking pictures at every level of the conference, from proposal sharing groups all the way to plenary, to producing daily news broadcasts and materials for all of our social media channels. Just like in the real world, the Cona media team was constantly juggling multiple platforms, rigorous deadlines, often working through meal times, kind of working in all the different times where we weren't in session. And they not only did it and met their deadlines, but I really believe that they exceeded all expectations that we as a program had for them. So I am incredibly proud of all the work that they did this year. So finally, I'd like to present the Outstanding Media Delegate Award. And did I say award? I actually meant to say awards. So this year, thanks. This year, I tried. This year, we were honored to present 2 Outstanding Media Delegate Awards. These delegates worked extremely hard all week long, not only completing all of their individual assignments, but they were constantly jumping in and helping other media delegates with their assignments and various projects. So I'll announce them one at a time, and we can do spirit fingers in between. Our first Outstanding Media Delegate Award from the family of Alabama, Amelia Blair. You can come up here and accept your award. Congratulations. And our second Outstanding Media Delegate from Oklahoma, Cole Apel. Cole, do you want to come up here and accept your award? Cole is our broadcast manager, and Amelia was a talented, super talented photographer, and we so appreciate all the work that they did this conference. Thank you very much, and safe travels home to all of you.
Thank you, James. And on behalf of all the delegates at this conference, thank you to the media program for helping make this conference what it is. You guys truly stepped up the game this year. And now for one of the moments you've all been waiting for, the presentation of premier delegations. To do it, Amber Voss.
Good evening. I have the honor of announcing the premier delegations for the 51st Annual Conference on National Affairs. First, I would like to go over the criteria that all proposals, applications, and fees are turned into the conference director's office on time, 100% attendance at all scheduled events, exceptional overall behavior of delegation, students, and adults, representation on the Conference Life Committee, no more than one proposal submitted on the same topic. So without further ado, I'm going to announce this year's premier delegations. Please use spirit fingers and hold all applause till the end. Alabama, Arizona, California, Delaware, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Missouri, Model United Nations, Nebraska, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and last but not least, Washington. Congratulations, delegations.
Thank you, delegates, and congratulations to the premier delegations. Every morning, the CLC representative in each of your delegation gets up early, thanklessly, might I add, schleps over to the BRC and conveys everything that you guys have expressed concerns about, what you like about the conference, and what you would like to see improved. The CLC representatives from each delegation are instrumental in planning this conference. This morning, many of them brought proposals that they wrote on things that they would like to see changed at the conference, whether or not it was in the Mountain Manual. We debated them and we voted on them, and all of them, regardless of whether or not they passed, will be passed on to the Conference Planning Committee and will hopefully be reviewed for inclusion in next year's conference. Now, will all the CLC representatives from their delegations please stand up for recognition? Thank you. And just so you all know, until you have to get up at 6 or 6:30 at a Cona conference, you don't know how hard it is. Now, for the Outstanding Statesman Awards, Toph Patterson.
Thank you. So this year, I have had the privilege of chairing the Outstanding Statesman Committee. The Outstanding Statesman is an award that recognizes excellence in chambers, in debate. But it's not just about who can create the best argument, who can sound the best behind a podium, but who displays character throughout the entire proceedings. It's those who recognize that it's not just about you, but it's also about making everyone else in the room better. Everyone in this room is truly an exceptional delegate, and no doubt the stars of your own programs. Regrettably, we can only recognize a few of you. I would like to first thank the other members of the committee who walked all up and down the mountain watching you. And so when I call your name, I would ask you to please come forward to accept a certificate. Please, spirit fingers only until we're complete. Our Outstanding Statesman for 2018 from Alabama, Ann Mitchell Welch. From Alabama, Addison Smith. From California, Maud Tipton. Also from California, Delaney Ivy. From Delaware, Jake Poppity. Also from Delaware, Andrew Honeycutt. From Indiana, Leslie Martin. From Kentucky, Albert Pan. Also from Kentucky, Evan Smither. From Louisiana, Morgan Hughes. Also from Louisiana, Foster Willie. From Michigan, Sam Lowry. From North Carolina, Jack Healy. Also from North Carolina, John Bailey. From New Jersey, Pranav Malampalli. From New Mexico, no hurry, you're fine. From New Mexico, Chloe Larkin. From New York, Nicholas Imam. Also New York, Kiera Mantz. From Oklahoma, Luke Albert. Also from Oklahoma, Antonio Camara. It's like steam building. From Pennsylvania, Rishan Sharma. Also from Pennsylvania, Colin Black. From South Carolina, come on. From South Carolina, Charlotte Snowd. From Tennessee, Cynthia Yu. It's your room. From Texas, Sharif Long. Also from Texas, Ayush Dave. From Virginia, Claire Nelson. Also from Virginia, Savion Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2018 Outstanding Statesman.
Delegates, delegates, please. And now to announce the 2007, I traveled back in time right there. And now to announce the 2019 presiding officers, the conference of the director of the Youth Conference on National Affairs, Sam Adams.
Y'all do realize that there are people watching at home that are smacking their computer wondering what that sizzling sound is. I hope they all take that back to your states and leave it there and don't bring it back next year. So, one of the strengths of the Youth in Government program that I always tell people of why it is so successful is that when we put a conference together, it is youth-led. That is led by young people. And here at this conference, we have a lot of roles for young people: committee chairs, CLC, roundtable chairs, delegation leaders, flag bearers, torch bearers. Well, we don't have torch bearers anymore. Placard bearers, showing my age. Used to, we didn't have enough states. We could have had everybody had a torch. But the presiding officers at this conference are also part of our success of making this a youth-led conference, because they bring their youth, their enthusiasm to this job that they have that is so difficult. In a moment, I'm going to recognize our presiding officers from this year. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process for selecting presiding officers. There's a committee of 6 adults and a non-voting chair who leads this group of 6 adults. They watch committees, General Assembly, plenary, and get feedback from other adults. Also, they watch and they listen in other places, on the porch, between sessions, on your halls at night. A lot of them are always around, listening, getting feedback. So, you got to watch out, right? And believe it or not, there's a 7th committee member, and that's you. Every one of you represents the 7th vote of the committee. So those votes you took in General Assembly the other night were counted. And the students that you voted, the most votes got a certain number of votes on the committee, second, certain number of votes, and so on. So you had a voice, and you had a vote in who the 2019 presiding officers and alternates are. So the overall purpose of this committee that you were on and you didn't even know it is to recognize 12 outstanding seniors at this year's conference. Those leaders are not the ones that talk the most. It's not even the ones that talk the best. But they're ones that have demonstrated humility, hard work, and servant leadership. In just a moment, I'll recognize this year's POs, and they will in turn name the presiding officers for 2019. But first, Brooke Balmer will introduce you to the 6 of you who stood out to the committee for your demonstrated servant leadership and will serve as alternates in the event that one of the 6 presiding officers for 2019 becomes unable to serve. And that's our chair for the planning committee, for the, what are we talking about here? Presiding officer selection committee, Brooke Balmer.
Good evening. As Sam said, my name is Brooke Balmer, and this year I've had the honor of serving as the PO Selection Committee Chair. The PO Selection Committee observes seniors all week, both in and out of session, to select 12 outstanding delegates who will serve as POs and alternates next year. The committee spends countless hours in sessions, at CLC meetings, on porches, at meals, during free time, observing students. Students are selected based on the following criteria, which is outlined in the Mountain Manual. Consistently demonstrating the 4 core values of the YMCA: caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility, respect of peers, good judgment, courteous to others, fairness, objectivity, maintains poise and maturity under pressure with intelligence, leadership, specifically servant leadership, consistency in rules, and presiding experience. I want to take a moment to thank the committee members who serve anonymously to make this process possible. They take on this role in addition to their role with their delegations and give much of their time, energy, and consideration to make everything happen. This year, there were 206 seniors at Cona, and the committee had the very difficult task of recognizing 12 exemplary seniors to serve as your presiding officers and alternates for the 2019 Conference on National Affairs. To this 2018 senior class, I want to thank you. Thank you for your passion, your compassion, your dedication, your enthusiasm, and most importantly, I think, your humanity. Thank you for making the selection process so challenging and thought-provoking, and thank you for being an exceptionally outstanding class. Now, as I call your name, please come forward to be recognized by the conference and to receive your certificate. Without further ado, here are your 2019 PO alternates. The sixth alternate from Louisiana, Laura Nicholson. Your fifth alternate from California, Delaney Ivy. Your fourth alternate from New York, Khadija Saad. Your third alternate from Pennsylvania, Zeryab Ibrahim. Your second alternate from Oklahoma, Antonio Camara. All right, and your first alternate from New Jersey, Pranav Malumpali.
And now I get to talk about this year's presiding officers a little bit. This group has worked together tirelessly, off the mountain, on the mountain, all which ways, to make this conference a success. They have put in their time and their talent to not only preside over sessions, but preside over CLC, meals, maybe the belly flop contest, and to make sure that this conference is led in a way that reflects the character and commitment of all of you. They each possess different qualities that we consider outstanding when put all together. And I want to personally thank each of them for their commitment, their hard work, their dedication, and their servant leadership this week. And I hope that you will join me in giving them all, as a group, a round of applause. And first up, Mr. Will Lowry from Michigan.
Thank you very much, Sam. Can everybody hear me? All I can really think of is a quote by Dr. Seuss, "How did it get so late so soon?" And that is the most put together part of my speech. I think from here it's going to be more of a conversation. I'm best with the more one-on-one environment. I'm definitely an introvert, but I'm going to try and go with the one on 650-some environment, so just bear with me. We all come from different places, and you guys have heard the cliche line, from shore to shore, sea to shining sea. We all have different backgrounds. We come from different families, different religions. The color of our skin's different. What we believe in is different. Our economic status is different. There's quite a lot of differences, but I think that there's three things that we all have in common. One, we're all Americans and we're proud of this country and we're happy to be here. Two, we care enough about this country that we all brought proposals to try to make it a better place, which I think is so cool. But the third one that we all have in common is that we are all, trying to think of a good word. We are all humbled by time, I suppose. We can't control it. Time is not an entity that we are able to control in any way, shape, or form. Whenever we want it to slow down, it speeds up. Whenever we want it to speed up, like I'm thinking the beginning of my freshman year of high school, it slows way down. Like it actually stops. So we're all here because we want to help this country, but we all have something in common, and that is that we have limited time to do it. It would be wonderful to change everything at once, but that's not how this world works. That's not how this country works. It would be great if we had one idea, a majority of the chamber agreed with it, and then boom, it was implemented. But if that were to happen, then I think the first authoritarian dictator that came along would destroy the republic. So more of a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back type of setup. So we have limited time. We can't do everything. It's not like we just wake up in the morning, solve world hunger, have a wonderful omelet for breakfast, and then after that, tackle the AIDS epidemic or something like that. Not how this world works. We have to pick our battles. And so I have some advice that I'd like to share with you guys about picking your battles. And what I love to do is to kind of pick a couple quotes and mash them all together, and it's really nice because you can kind of remove yourself from the emotion of it all. But I started a job this summer, and right on the bathroom stall, which is such a nice place to put it, is a plaque that reads, "Never give out advice you haven't tried on yourself." So this story is going to get a little bit personal, so those of you that have your bingo cards ready, get ready to mark off that ridiculously overly emotional personal story. Hope someone gets a bingo from this. So, beginning of this year, and also please laugh during the story, otherwise it's going to be really weird. There's sad parts, but there's a lot of funny parts too. Beginning of this year, school year, right before the school year, I was 7 days away from moving into my college dorm, super duper excited, high school behind me, I'm so ready to be an adult, because at that point I thought I knew what I was doing with my life or something like that. And that night, a lot of things changed. Whew, not gonna cry. I'm gonna save you guys a lot of the details, but you You guys can laugh now, that's the good part. No, long story short, found something inside of my body that definitely not supposed to be there. Wow, these lips are not working. Definitely not supposed to be there. That, long story short, significantly altered my life expectancy. Things changed. My outlook on how to save this world and how to make this country a better place changed, because instead of having 80 years to, go into politics and change things up, I had much, much, much less time. And so I was sitting there and I realized, all right, my time is quite limited. How am I going to implement these changes I want to see? How are we going to support early childhood education? How are we going to support these national parks? Although, thank God, sounds like we're on the way to something better there. Thank you, guys. All right. And so what I did is, of course, after learning my diagnosis, I decided to try and find myself. I have, 15, 20 years. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to find my purpose, which has been a huge, huge idea behind this conference. And what I found is that finding your purpose is like trying to lick your own tongue. You can do it, and you spend a whole lot of, try it right now. You can spend a whole lot of time trying to lick your own tongue, and you kind of get it, but you actually don't, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And it's because I was starting from scratch. I decided to throw everything out that I'd learned thus far, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to find out who I am. Who am I? I'm going for this. And I had no boundaries, no parameters. And a quote from David Brooks that I love really summed up how that went. Freedom without structure is its own form of slavery. As you guys can probably imagine, after about a month of moping about the situation, I gave up, and then I had 2 months of finding myself, which led me nowhere. So I learned that I need a guide to change the way to figure out how to handle the problems of this world. I still don't know my purpose. I don't have this beautiful one sentence of yes, this is why I'm here, and I have my 25-year plan figured out. No, nothing like that. All that I have for you guys is a quote from the man who knows how to love. The Grinch that stole Christmas. Well, actually, not the Grinch, just the man who played the part of the Grinch, Jim Carrey. Wonderful man. And so I have a quote from there, and that's really been my guiding principle going through all these different issues that I've had to deal with. The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. All that you gain in life will rot and fall apart, and all that will be left of you is what was in your heart. You will only ever have 2 decisions in life, love or fear. So many of us choose our paths out of fear disguised as practicality. Choose love and never let fear turn you against your playful heart. We talk about this idea of changing the world like it's just one instant. It's one speech, it's one act of legislation. That's not how the world changes. The world changes in the little moments. It's in the day-to-day. It's in sitting next to the delegate who didn't speak up much during the conference. It's in talking to your parents. If you disappear for 5 days, they'd probably like to know where you are. It's in standing up or maybe using spirit fingers to support a proposal author that really took a chance with their proposal, and even though they got shut down a lot, just supporting them through that. We changed the world musically. We changed the world with a beautiful orchestra of tiny moments of decisions, and each of those decisions is nothing more than deciding, are you going to love or are you going to fear? And so delegates, I got no answer for you when it comes to purpose. I wish I did, but I think that everyone that does is a little full of themselves. All I can do is encourage you to, at every single junction you come to, ask yourself, is today the day that I love, or is today the day that I fear? And with that, I yield the remainder of my time to the chair. Thank you. But surprise, I actually don't yield my time to the chair because I have one more announcement, and let's be honest, it's what all of you guys have been waiting for. The PO of 2019. Now this delegate, funnily enough, I looked up to for the longest time, Before this conference, I hadn't talked to him because the first conference I came, I figured he was 2 years older than me and then he'd be graduating, and he didn't graduate. So then the next year I came and I figured, all right, this is his last year. I'm going to try and talk to him. Couldn't get the guts up. I was too afraid. And this year I came back and I realized, wow, he's still here. I thought that he was 3 years older than me. I've thought of a lot of different ways to introduce this individual, but basically his heart is pure. He knows himself. He knows how much he loves his Creator. He's an all-around solid guy, and you guys will be able to find him hanging out in Bikini Bottom, cracking open a cold one with Mr. Krabs. Ladies and gentlemen, from the great state of Texas, Sharif Wong.
The gentlelady from Florida, Miss Grace Miller.
Good evening, delegates. I've already cried a bunch of times today, so I'm really hoping I can make it through this speech without crying, but we'll see. A little under 2 years ago, in the middle of my AP US History class, of all classes, I watched Hillary Clinton deliver her concession speech with such grace and poise that I was stunned. This woman had gone through one of the most divisive elections in our history. Yet, she stood before a mournful crowd and told her supporters that we owed our new president a chance because our democracy depended on that peaceful transition of power. She spoke of how her loss hurt, yet it wouldn't be the end of her fight. I sat back and I deeply considered how much bravery and tenacity that must have taken. I mean, we've all lost something at some point or another in our lives. I remember thinking my entire world was over the first time I lost a student council election. Yet somehow she stood up on that stage, not defeated and dejected, but full of optimism and hope. I couldn't even grasp how someone could keep going, keep caring, keep moving forward, thinking of the future of an entire country instead of themselves. As she wrapped up her thanks to the people that supported her through it all, she stated a final thank you to all the little girls who were watching. She urged them to never doubt that they are valuable and powerful and deserving of every chance and opportunity in the world to pursue and achieve their own dreams. I'm not saying that one quote changed my life, nor did it truly help me understand how she did what she did that night. But it did help me move forwards. It helped me realize that there was something worth fighting for, because I was powerful enough to make the changes I wish to see in the world around me. I think even now, in this room of the strongest, most intelligent, and even more importantly, most passionate young woman I have ever met, we can all agree that there are times where we struggle with recognizing our own value and the fact that our voices deserve to be heard just as much as our male peers. I know each and every one of you have experiences that depict the exact phenomenon I'm alluding to. Every time you rose to speak and were spoken over, or might have wanted to raise your placard, but you second-guessed yourself because you didn't want to appear too controlling or too critical of those around you. The struggle for young women to balance their strengths while adhering to the norms of fostering an empathetic and nurturing environment is a fight that doesn't affect our male peers as much. This double standard is apparent when young female children are called bossy for exhibiting the same behaviors as young men who are told that one day they should run for president. And for the few brave young women who fight tooth and nail to enter male-dominated career fields such as politics, they are criticized for their haircuts and outfit choices, while their male counterparts are interviewed on the stances of their public policy, which I might add, women have opinions on too. However, I also recognize that this mountain is where I realized that the social norms I found myself adhering to in the real world didn't need to confine me. As long as I knew that I was expressing my opinions respectfully, I stopped caring if people were offended by the idea of me having opinions that differed from their own, or having opinions at all. I now know that questioning whether or not I was deserving or worthy of the opportunities that I received was an obstacle I was only facing because I wasn't sure of my own value as the young woman I am standing before all of you today. A woman that recognizes her own worth and accepts nothing less is able to move mountains and change the world. The glass ceiling does not shatter overnight. It takes both perseverance and grit. I believe it was here in this very building that I realized that the time to be politely silent was long gone, and the time to engage in respectful discourse was now. I was tired of being angry at the world, at looking at the news and wanting to scream or cry or just run away from it all. I'm sure all of you know exactly what this feels like, the feeling of caring so much it hurts. If there's one thing this mountain has left me with, it is that caring may be painful at times, but it is always worth it. Scratch that actually. Caring is not only worth it, it is the most beautiful and most purely human thing you can do in these lives we were given. Use these last few moments here, surrounded by others who care just as strongly, and allow yourselves to soak it in. Recharge. Care so loudly that you feel as if you're screaming off the top of mountains for the whole world to hear. Care until it hurts, because the only alternative is slipping into apathy. And apathy takes all the beauty out of this gorgeous world we inhabit. People are always talking about others who spend their lives fighting that good fight, as if any of us understand what that means. But I believe, just maybe, that there are scores of good fights to be fought, fights that are worth it no matter the costs. And caring loudly, that is one of them. Every day, you have the choice to slip into the comfort of indifference, but instead you choose to be here. You choose to care, and you chose to care brilliantly. For that, I thank you from the greatest depths of my heart and soul. Life may seem bleak and scary and disappointing at times, but you have the power to make a difference, so do it. Don't stand idly by. Don't be an individual who sits back and watches any form of persecution take place without interfering. There is no excuse for a lack of empathy towards those around you anymore. When you arrive home, it may feel as if Atlas shifted the entire weight of the sky onto your shoulders instead of his own. Remaining engaged, however, becomes so much simpler when you have an entire mountain behind you. As my last time addressing this conference comes to a close, I would just like to remind you, like someone reminded me, that you should never doubt that you are powerful and valuable and deserving of every chance and opportunity in the world to pursue and achieve your own dreams. I stand before you for the last time, without a doubt that I am finally someone worthy of the chances and opportunities that came my way. Thank you, delegates. Thank you for being the mountain behind me and a constant reminder that fighting for what's right and caring loudly is always, always, always worth it. Thank you. Thank you, delegates. All right, and the part I know you guys have been patiently waiting for. I now have the pleasure to announce your next presiding officer. This delegate is an individual who inspires an entire room with a single smile. Her passion exudes with every breath, and I promise you that she always cares loudly. Delegates, please welcome from the delegation of Alabama, Olivia Pride.
Ne- From Pennsylvania, Miss Laney Newman.
Good evening, delegates. Before I begin, I just want to thank my fellow presiding officers here. I'm truly in so much admiration for all of you guys, and I really appreciate the week that we've had. In 1961, an advertisement in a small-town New England newspaper read the following: "We'll pay $4 for 1 hour of your time, asking for 500 men to help us complete a scientific study of memory and learning." The scientific study, which was not really about memory or learning, was entitled The Behavioral Study of Obedience. It soon became known as the Milgram experiment after its lead researcher. Stanley Milgram sought to answer the question that the world was left wondering in the aftermath of the Second World War. How had so many people conformed to accept and engage in cruelty and in violence in the form of genocide? The study's objective? Test to see whether people will blindly listen to authority, even in the face of inflicting harm or pain on another person. Many of you are probably familiar with the mechanism of the Milgram experiment. Participants in the study were asked to quote-unquote punish another person who was actually an actor. This punishment came in the form of increasingly high electric shocks, which were not real despite the participant believing them to be so. The results of Milgram's study were startling. 2/3 of participants went through with the entire experiment, executing increasingly high electric shocks to the other person, even when the shock was enough to kill them. I've spent many hours, too many hours, thinking about the Milgram experiment and its implications. Are we all truly that susceptible to moral corruption? That all it would take for us to hurt another person is someone in a lab coat telling us to do so? I grew up in a family of psychologists, so I learned about Milgram's and a few other psychosocial experiments much younger than I probably should have. I remember thinking about it as a kid and pleadingly promising myself to always be in the minority, to always be one of the people who would refuse to conform. Then, as a young adult, I began to think about the choices that the people around me would make. Sure, everyone thinks that they would be capable of doing the right thing, but in the moment, so many do not do so. The experiment was a paradox to me, and it was haunting. Odd as it may sound, my assessment of whether I believed a person to be among the minority in a hypothetical Milgram experiment for a while became how I would determine whether that person I deemed a good person. We all struggle with what that means, with what it means to be a good person. Though we may be guided by different ideologies, faiths, or figures, fundamentally the underlying concept is nearly the same. How far will we go to act? How far will we go to stand up and sacrifice for what is right and for what is moral? But there is an inherent problem here. Experiences inform the way in which we make decisions, and in order for people to be able to stand up and act, they must somehow, in some way, be empowered to do so. In order for people to be in what I'll call Milgram's minority, they must know that they always have the ability to act. They must know that they always have the ability to voice the alternative point of view. They must know that it is always within their power to do what is right, even if it's not easy, and even if they're the only person doing so. Delegates, to know that we have the ability to act is power, and that's exactly what we learn here. We learn how to stand up and speak out, no matter if the whole room agrees or if our placards are the only one in the air. Though memories of speeches and dockets and mistakes here at Cona may dissipate in the months and years to come, the feelings that we collectively derived from taking action here at this conference will not. Here, we have been empowered. Empowered to go back to our respective states and carry the torch forward. Empowered to fight for what we believe in and to fight for what we believe is important. Empowered to stand up for what is right. Delegates, let this empowerment transcend every aspect of your lives, and let it guide you to help those around you. In my own experiences, there have been many times in which I've been startled at the lack of action taken by people around me when someone is struggling. when a man collapsed on the street and people simply walked by minding their own business, or when a friend from college was sexually assaulted in front of multiple people. We debate policy here at Cona, but it's about more than that. It's always been about more than that. It's about doing good for the world, for our country, because people matter and because we care. To me, the Blue Ridge spirit is the knowledge that we carry with us that we can always make a difference, no matter the situation. As you leave this mountain, my hope is that every person in this room carries that knowledge, the responsibility with them to always be someone who cares, who acts, who speaks, and who helps. I said in my opening speech just a few short days ago that this conference is the epilogue of my YAG story. This, right now, very well be the last sentence of that epilogue. But at this moment, seeing all of you here in front of me, I could not be more happy to have the sun setting on this chapter of my life. I cannot thank you enough for allowing me the honor of serving as your 2018 presiding officer for this Conference on National Affairs. Delegates, be good. Thank you. Now, I have the true pleasure of announcing the next 2019 Cona presiding officer. This delegate is most certainly one of the most impressive, brilliant people I've ever met. He's also truly a kind and humble soul, and he truly embodies the Y Corps values and the reason that we are all here together on the mountain. Having made it to plenary these past 3 years, I was so honored to serve as his pro-intent speaker last year in plenary. From the home of Lil Wayne and Anthony Davis, please welcome Drake Brignac of Louisiana.
Jumping the gun a little bit. Sorry. Mr. Dean Halim. Delegates, decorum. Delegates, decorum, please. Now, as you saw, I was a bit nervous for this. I've thought of what I'm going to speak about this intermittently for the past year. I came up with a bunch of different topics. I thought I'd talk about Jean-Paul Sartre's theory of identity. I thought I'd talk about my mom. I thought I'd talk about any one of the many experiences I've had on here, any one of the people who changed my life, any one of the people who saw me on this mountain, a crying, scared kid at times, took me in and said everything's going to be okay. I thought I would speak about any one of them. But during free time yesterday, one of the ideas hit me again. There are 3 messages on my shoes. There's H plus H, humble and hungry. On the bottom, there's fear is not real. On the other side, there's JBY, just be yourself. And with that, I realized that what is the most myself thing that I could talk about? Basketball. Specifically, the Boston Celtics. Now, delegates, what I want to talk to you about tonight is the dichotomy between Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Because in the days before LeBron could change a local economy with a tweet, in the days before Steph was splashing threes and Harden was hitting step backs,
there was two titans who ruled the NBA. See, now when we talk about the GOAT, we talk about LeBron and Jordan, but people used to talk about Wilt and Russell. See, the titan on the West Coast was Wilt. Wilt was 7'1" in a time when the league average height was 6'5". Wilt is one of the best athletes to ever walk on the face of the earth. If you look in NBA record books, you will see Wilt Chamberlain, Wilt Chamberlain, Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, Wilt Chamberlain. He averaged 50 points in a game. 50 points in a game for a season. Jordan's highest for comparison was 37, LeBron's was 31. Statistically, no player will ever measure up to what he did, which begs the question, why was Bill Russell, a guy who never averaged more than 18 points a game for a season and played on the opposite coast with a better coach and better teammates, why was Bill Russell ever compared to Wilt? There's a reason. Because for all the stats Wilt cared about, for the fact that when the NBA began to value assists, he would pass the ball to his teammates almost every possession and force them to shoot. When they wouldn't shoot, he'd yell at them. He averaged 8.6 assists that year, one of the highest numbers ever for a center. But his team didn't win the championship. The team that did was the Boston Celtics, because Bill Russell values one stat over every other stat: box plus minus. Box plus minus is a stat that probably only analytics nerds know today, but the fundamental premise is how much better or worse is your team for the fact that you were on the court. That was the stat that Bill Russell brought to work every single day. At his statue in Boston, right near Faneuil Hall, I visited often, there's these little rectangular pillars around him. They say teamwork and hard work and leadership. But one of them has one of my favorite quotes from Russell. At the end of a game, I didn't judge myself by how well I did, but by how well I helped my teammates do. No one in the NBA will ever do that as well as Bill Russell. And as we sit here and we think, are we Russell or Chamberlain? First of all, I go to a liberal arts college and it's a spectrum. So you're somewhere in between most likely. But it's very easy to say, I was Russell. It's very easy to say, I looked at those delegates who needed help and I helped them. But if you think about it more, oftentimes you can come to a point where you see yourself exactly as Wilt, helping them so that others could see you helping them, padding your stats so that you look better and better, becoming more and more like that person who you know you hate, who's doing 13 extracurriculars right now, who's doing 7 internships, their parents are also doing something really cool, and they're a legacy to like 6 Ivies. But my moment where I realized that I was Wilt was under one of the trees right out there. It was my sophomore year, and I had just passed GA. I gave some rambling, ridiculous speech at the end that included America being the back-to-back World War champs and fighting the pharmaceutical companies. And I realized that I gave that speech a little bit because I cared about Big Pharma, and a lot because I wanted to see everybody see me give that speech. I wanted to pad my stat sheet. I wanted to be the savage who gave the cool speech in GA. I wrote about that in my journal that night, that I have a voice. I can do great things with that voice. But I can also do great things for myself. I can just aggrandize myself, come up here, speak for a long time, try and get people to like me, rather than just talking about the truth, and rather than just trying to do good for my team around me. Obviously, I haven't become Bill Russell since then. There's so many times where I'm still Wilt, still looking for the stats. But as long as I stay cognizant of my box plus minus, I know that I can eventually become Russell. For you delegates, tomorrow you're going to wake up on a totally different basketball court. Of basketball courts representing life, Cona is the court with the gilded gold rims and the silk nets. But tomorrow you're going to wake up somewhere different. It might be similar, it might be totally it might be totally unchangeably different. But life is going to present you with a choice. Life's going to give you a ball. It's going to give you a team, and it's going to ask you to play. No matter what you were here, that has no bearing on tomorrow. Because tomorrow is a new game, and your box plus minus, whatever it was here, not registered in that game. You have to make the choice every day to say, is today the day that I'm going to work for my team and put others before myself and make sure that we win, or is today the day that I'm going to be the savage with a sick speech and 50 points a game so that my name goes in the record books? It's so impossibly hard to choose this day in and day out. But you're here. That means that someone in your delegation thought that you could. They thought that you and your delegation were going to have a plus. They may have thought you would have a huge plus. And if you prove them right or prove them wrong, you can prove them right tomorrow and prove them right the next day and every day from there on out. Because that's what we're all called to do. We're all called to be a little bit like Bill Russell. Thank you. Now, delegates, given the theme of the speech and who our next presiding officer is, I've looked at them like 12 times from where I was sitting right there. Because another member of their team is on this team, and I wanted to see how they would react. I mean, I came back from seeing them chair and brag to all these guys that I have an elite chair. He's so good. Like, God, it's like he's so on top. Like, I have to do nothing. Like, he's fantastic. I just sit and I watch. But this person responded exactly how I hoped they would. They had 2 people from their delegation receive acknowledgments today, and they were the first person to clap. They jumped right out of their seats, looked at them, held their hand over their heart, kind of like this, and cheered for them. Your next presiding officer from the family of Alabama, Addison Smith.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Zoe Bloomfield.
So good evening, delegates. I guess the way I wanted to start out this speech was by asking you something I think, to an extent, all of you can relate to. I'm sure at some point in your life you've heard that idea that people will go and drive off in a car just to think, just to give themselves the opportunity to think through something they might be struggling with. For me, although cars did work, that always was a plane, and I never fully understood why. I'd sit in the window seat exclusively and would look out the window at the rolling clouds, perhaps the land so far, far below me, and I'd feel isolated. Just enough to think about my life in exclusivity to the life that I was living, to be able to truly analyze what was going on and to ask myself the hard questions to help myself improve. And a lot of the ways I did this was by writing something, and a lot of times it comes out as gibberish. I think it's some Shakespearean masterpiece, and it really just turns out to be a toddler's story for school. But there was one that I did create recently, the first time I came back from France this year at college, and it felt different to me. And I really want to share it with you guys, because I feel like there might be more than one ways that you relate to it as well. The plane ride home feels different. Typically, each time I fly, I procure some lesson, hidden behind the clouds arcing like waves below me. This time, I feel this great weight over me the next few weeks. Not in an overwhelming, dreary way. It's a sense of importance. The weight of gold or of silver. The lesson of this trip is understanding that my time in the U.S. now isn't just to calm down and relax. I need to make the greatest use of my time abroad, my exposure to new thoughts, new people, an entirely new understanding. I need to see how I view the world around me I once knew deeply, because that world is still there, of course, but now with deeper levels. And for the first time, I think I've accessed a new level, one that will hopefully lead me to understand not only more about the world around me, but what I should be doing with my time in it. I was right ages ago when I said that exposure to a new culture would bring me a greater awareness of the world. But see, it only goes so far to seek awareness in that new environment. You must take it home with you. Analyze the familiar. See just how unfamiliar, how challenged, and yet how much more valuable it has become in your eyes. Take it all in, embrace it, and return with it abroad. You see, it's a cyclical relationship. Discovery abroad, depth of perception, greater discovery abroad, in an infinite cycle. That is how you will truly begin to understand the world, and hopefully your place in it, your purpose. So as I make my way into my descent, I don't know what I'm about to discover, if anything at all, but I know I must keep myself open and ready for it. So come what may. I don't know what I'm looking for or how I will find it, but I know something is waiting for me, and I'm ready for it. So the value of this is that when I actually was sitting here this year and I looked out at the view, it reminded me exactly of that view outside that plane window. It's a time capsule where we are right now. We are isolated from an environment that normally depicts everything that we live around, everything that defines our society, our culture, our community. Yet we are here with so many different people from so many different places, so many different cultures, so many different communities, in a way that allows us to truly isolate ourselves from the environment that might cloud our vision to self-analyze and grow, and finally make change, finally look at ourselves and ask ourselves, not only what is this world around us, but what is my role going to be in it? How am I going to change things? And so, even further than that, the relationship between Cona that we have here, it really is cyclical with yourself, because while my destination, the place that I keep returning to, might be abroad and then back into the US, yours is your home community. You look at that home community, you look at the places that you've been, and your perception of it changes from being here. Because finally you've seen something that doesn't just depict what you're used to, it depicts the world around you. And it is that perception, that change of mentality that is going to allow you to create that cyclical relationship, which involves you learning something at home, bringing it to conference, debating it, loving it, being passionate about it, learning something new, bringing it back, looking at your environment, looking at the way you live in an entirely new way, and then finding a new Cona, finding a new group of people that brings out your best side, that brings out your most passionate voices, and yet learn even more. And the cycle continues. It truly is difficult for me to sit up here and come up with many different cliche ways for me to look at how I'm going to give the best advice for you to take what you've learned here and bring it off the mountain, because really all of you do have those different lives. If anything, my experience this past year has made me realize just how different everyone's lives are, how different your culture is, your community is, just by being where you are, being where you grew up. And so therefore, I don't have individual advice for each of you, except that it is so crucial you look at your time here, you look at the environment that you've made, the people that you've met, the friendships that you have created, and you take something away from it, whatever that lesson may be, whatever it is that is the most valuable to you, and you allow it to shape the way you look at back home and your world and the way that you want to live as a person inside of it. Because at the end of the day, it's not enough to be here as a delegate and simply enjoy this mountain. It is now your duty to turn right around and ask yourself, how can I take what I've learned here in my own individualist sense and make something great out of it? I wish I could tell you what that is, and I wish all of you could know immediately right now what that might be, but that's the true beauty of it. You never will know until you just keep growing in that cyclical relationship, keep moving towards what makes you passionate, and keep finding those people that bring that passion out of you. So at the end of the day, thank you so much, delegates, for being extraordinary year after year after year, and inspiring me to write things like this, to want to change the world around me, to want to do the things that make me the most passionate person. So thank you. So with that, the news all of you are waiting for. I have the pleasure of announcing yet the next presiding officer for 2019. So they asked us to share a few words, but in all honesty, I don't think I could even begin to do that. There's just so much that I could say. The best thing I guess I could leave you with is that when you think about someone who could uphold every single core value, not only of the YMCA, but everything that I just spoke about, this delegate represents it. And I can guarantee you that it is no surprise to any of us that this is the delegate, one of them that has been chosen. So I guess as a final note, I will say that this was a delegate I saw the first day of, I guess, her experience in the youth and government programs. And I was proud then, and I could not be more proud now. So welcome to the family, Maddie Walsh.
And last but not least, Mr. Blake Sloan.
Thank you, everyone. It's probably weird for you to see me smile after a week, but bear with me. The Rubicon River, in reality, hardly even constituted a stream. But to the Roman Republic, the Rubicon was one of its most important boundaries. Crossing the river was physically an easy task, but politically, the consequences were damning. See, during the Roman Republic, it was forbidden for a governor to march south with his troops past this point. Doing so was an act of war, and the penalty was death. Yet on January 10th, 49 BC, Julius Caesar and the soldiers of the 13th Legion found themselves on the banks of the Rubicon, contemplating treason. Caesar crossed the river later that day and began his march on Rome. The leader of the Republic, Pompey, retreated further south as soon as he heard the news, claiming that Rome was indefensible. Within 5 years, the Republic fell, and in its place, a single man consolidated power. That day in 49 BC isn't significant because of some genius military strategy or a famous speech, but as Caesar waited on the banks of the Rubicon, the future of Roman democracy was contingent on the actions of an individual. Here at Cona, we know a thing or two about the power of individuals. We've seen all the quiet delegates in our committees who stand up and silence every single con speaker. We've all seen the delegate get up in plenary and share a story that they haven't even told their closest friends back home. There's no absence of strength in this room. But is the individual power we exemplify here at Cona only capable of being created and cultivated in these rooms? The second we step foot on the buses and leave this conference, does our voice cease to exist? Actually, it's the opposite. The community we have on this mountain, while surely helpful, is by no means a prerequisite for having your voice heard. In fact, it's a luxury we're often not afforded outside of this week. A little under 3 years ago, I was participating in what I thought to be a friendly debate about the Israel-Palestine conflict. I presented what I I presented what I thought to be a very moderate argument. I recognized fallibility on both sides and advocated for a two-state solution. When I finished presenting my point of view, I anticipated an equally informed and researched response. I had been spoiled by my experiences on the mountain. Instead, I was called a kike and a Zionist pig. I was attacked because of my religion and my culture, despite the respect I tried to show the other person. In that moment, there would have been two easy options. I could sink to that level of discourse and rebuttal, or to simply give up and keep my voice to myself in the future. But I'm still here. Yes, Cona may pamper and spoil us with procedure we use and the equal platform we get, but never forget the ways that the conference prepares us to overcome adversity. So yes, when we go home, we have a responsibility to ensure our voices are still heard. Because if we learn anything from Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon, it's that the longevity of democracy is never guaranteed. There will come a time, I don't know if it will be tonight, in a month, or in 20 years, when democracy is once again contingent on the actions of an individual. All I know is that it's inevitable. And in that moment, what will we do? Will we give in to personal ambition and self-interest like Caesar? Will we retreat, believing our position is indefensible, like Pompey? Or will we stand firm and use our individual power to fight for what we believe? Thank you. And now, for your final presiding officer of 2019. This delegate is truly someone who embraces the Blue Ridge spirit in everything we do here on this mountain for the week. Every time they've spoken, they did so with a tremendous amount of passion and respect, the degree to which is unrivaled. From the volunteer state of Tennessee, Peyton Renfor. Congratulations. Let's get one more big round of applause for your 2019 presiding officers. Thank you, delegates. And with that, we have some brief announcements. Firstly, the closing assembly will begin at 9:45 here in Heaton Hall. Flag bearers should sit in the back of the room so they can leave after the slideshow. And with that, as my final act as a presiding officer and as a Cona delegate, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn this 2018 Conference on National Affairs. Is there a four-year Cona delegate? Delegate in the back. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye in your normal speaking voice. Aye. All those against, in your normal speaking voice, nay. The ayes have it. This conference is adjourned. I think I fell asleep during my sleep.